The Galactic Empire was old and proud. For thousands of years they had ruled the stars. They had crushed every rebellion, silenced every rival, and bent entire species to their will. To the people of the Empire, nothing was stronger, nothing was greater, nothing could ever threaten their place in the galaxy. But one night, deep in the Imperial capital, alarms began to ring. Admiral Rethan, commander of the Core Defense Fleet, rushed to the control chamber. On the giant holoscreen before him, a massive shape was emerging from hyperspace. It was a warship, bigger than any recorded in the Imperial archives. The officers gasped. Its hull gleamed black, broken by lines of glowing blue energy. Its weapons arrays were unlike anything they had ever seen. The sensors screamed warnings, unable to classify the technology. Admiral Rethan narrowed his eyes. "This cannot be real," he whispered. "No empire builds a ship like that." The first officer stammered, "Sir, the design, it does not match any known species, not even the ancient ones." Then another officer shouted, his voice trembling, "Sir, the transponder signal, it is human." For a moment the chamber fell into silence. Every officer stared at the screen as if struck. The word hung heavy in the air. Human, a primitive race, considered weak, insignificant, almost forgotten. Centuries ago, the Empire had forced humans into small colonies at the edge of the galaxy. Their fleets had been destroyed, their resources stripped, their technology barely above mining vessels. The Empire never thought of them again. Humans were nothing. But now, here was a ship so large, so advanced, that even the Empire trembled at the sight of it. Admiral Rethan's voice cracked as he spoke. "Impossible. There is no way that's a human warship, right?" The chamber erupted in disbelief. Some laughed nervously, thinking it must be a trick. Others whispered about ancient myths, but the warship did not care. It floated silently in the void, massive and calm, as though daring the Empire to move. Rethan ordered immediate scans. "Find its weaknesses," he demanded, but the scans returned nothing useful. The ship's armor was unreadable, its energy source immeasurable. Every second it lingered, the Empire's confidence weakened. Across the capital, rumors spread. Citizens crowded around screens showing the mysterious vessel. Panic whispered in their voices. "If this is human, what have they become?" Children cried, merchants closed their shops, and senators demanded answers. For the first time in centuries, fear spread across the Empire like fire. Back in the command chamber, the first officer asked, "Should we hail them, sir?" Rethan hesitated. The Empire never lowered itself to speak to weaker species, but something about the silence of the warship unsettled him. "Yes, send a hail," he finally said. The message was broadcast on every channel. "This is Admiral Rethan of the Galactic Empire. Identify yourself and state your purpose." The words echoed through space, but the warship gave no reply. Its lights pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. Seconds turned into minutes. The silence was unbearable. Frustrated, Rethan clenched his fist. "Very well. If they will not answer, we will show them who rules this galaxy." He ordered a small cruiser forward. The ship approached cautiously, its weapons armed. Every eye in the command chamber was fixed on the screen. The cruiser fired a single energy bolt, a test shot meant to warn the intruder. The bolt struck the hull of the human warship and vanished. No explosion, no damage, nothing. The Empire's most advanced weapons had been swallowed like sparks against a mountain. Gasps filled the chamber. Rethan's face turned pale. This is no ordinary ship," he whispered. "The Wubby." Our ship remained still, calm, as though the attack had not even been noticed. Suddenly the sensors lit up. "Sir, the ship is powering something. Energy levels off the charts." The chamber filled with red alarms. Officers shouted over one another. "Should we retreat? Should we fire everything?" But no one had an answer. Even Admiral Rethan felt a cold dread creep into his chest. The screen zoomed in, showing the glowing lines across the human warship brightening. It was preparing a weapon, something vast, something the Empire had never seen. For the first time in his life, Admiral Rethan, defender of the Empire, felt true fear. As the ship's energy surged higher, he whispered words he never thought he would speak. "If that really is human, then the galaxy is about to change forever." And then, the warship's weapon came alive, bathing the stars in a light that shook the entire Empire. The glow of the human warship filled the void like a second star. its light reflected across the armored hulls of the Imperial fleet. Every officer on every bridge felt the same shiver crawl down their spines. They were facing something far beyond their understanding. In the command chamber, Admiral Rethan struggled to keep his voice steady. "All ships, maintain formation," he ordered. His words echoed with authority, but inside he knew control was slipping away. The Empire had fought thousands of battles, yet never had their fleets frozen in fear. The mysterious warship still had not moved. It sat like a predator, silent and patient. Its glowing lines pulsed slowly, as if mocking the Empire's hesitation. The longer it waited, the more fear spread through the ranks. Across the capital, panic was growing. News channels replayed the same image. The massive black warship, its energy lines burning blue in the darkness. Citizens whispered of prophecies and curses. Some shouted that the gods had returned. Others screamed that this was the end of the Empire. Rethan slammed his hand against the console. "They are only humans," he hissed. "They were weak, broken, scattered to the stars." But even he could not believe his own words. The evidence stood before him, silent and unstoppable. The Emperor himself appeared on the holoscreen, his golden robe glowing in the chamber light. His voice was calm but sharp. "Admiral, you will remind the galaxy who we are. You will crush this vessel and erase the insult from history." Rethan bowed his head. "Yes, Your Majesty." But as the screen faded, doubt gnawed at his heart. Crush it, yes, but how? He turned to his officers. "Prepare the fleet," he said. "We will test this intruder with full power." His words were steady, but his eyes betrayed his fear. The Imperial fleet spread out, thousands of ships in tight formation, energy weapons glowed, missiles armed, shields raised. It was the largest display of force in centuries, the pride of the Galactic Empire ready to strike. But still, the human warship waited, silent, unmoving, daring them to come closer. A young officer broke the silence, his voice shaking. "Sir, what if this is not their only ship?" The chamber grew colder at the thought. If this was only one, how many more could be waiting in the dark? Rethan silenced him with a glare. "We cannot show weakness," he growled. "Signal the fleet. All units fire on my mark." The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The void erupted in light. Thousands of beams, torpedoes, and missiles screamed across space. The stars vanished behind the storm of Imperial firepower. The human warship was swallowed by the barrage. Explosions rippled across its black hull. The command chamber erupted with cheers. "Yes, direct hits," officers shouted. For a moment, hope returned, but then the smoke cleared, and the warship remained untouched. Not a scratch. The Empire's most powerful fleet had unleashed everything, and it had done nothing. The cheers turned to silence. Admiral Rethan felt his stomach twist. This is impossible," he muttered. The officers stared, pale and silent, their courage drained in an instant. Then the warship spoke. A voice filled the chamber, deep and calm. "Galactic Empire," it said, "you should have left us in peace." The voice was human, steady and cold. It carried no anger, no shouting, only certainty. And that certainty was more terrifying than any weapon. "Who commands this vessel?" Rethan demanded, forcing his voice to stay strong. The voice replied, "I am Captain Elias of the United Human Fleet. You once called us weak, but now you will listen." The chamber froze. United Human Fleet. The words had never existed in Imperial records. Human colonies were scattered, leaderless, broken. But now, before them stood a warship with power beyond imagination, commanded by a united force. Captain Elias spoke again. "We asked for peace long ago. You gave us chains. You gave us ashes. Now, we bring balance." Rethan's mouth went dry. "Balance?" he repeated. The captain's voice sharpened. "You will understand soon." Before Rethan could respond, the warship moved, slowly, silently. Its massive form turned toward the heart of the Empire. Its engines glowed brighter. It was heading straight for the capital. "Intercept it," Rethan roared, but fear had already spread through the fleet. Some ships hesitated, some began to fall back, others obeyed and moved forward, their weapons firing in desperation. Once again, the blast struck the black hull, and once again they vanished like drops of water on fire. The human warship advanced without pause. Every step closer was a hammer blow to the Empire's pride. In the capital below, citizens watched the giant ship approaching on every screen. Whispers filled the streets. The humans have returned, they said. They are not weak anymore. For the first time in living memory, the Empire felt the shadow of fear, the kind of fear they had forced upon countless worlds. Now it was their turn. Admiral Rethen's hands trembled as he gripped the console. He whispered to himself, if one ship can do this, what else do they have? The question echoed in his mind as the human warship continued its silent march toward the capital, and deep in his heart, he already knew the answer. This was only the beginning. The human warship advanced through the void with slow and steady power. Its engines burned with a pale blue light, brighter than any star nearby. The Galactic Empire's fleet scattered before it like dust before a storm. No matter how many shots they fired, no matter how many ships they sent, the black giant did not break. Admiral Rethen stood rigid in the command chamber, his face pale and his heart pounding. He had seen many battles, but never had he seen a warship move with such terrifying calm. Every other empire used speed, fire, or numbers to overwhelm, but this ship moved as if nothing in the galaxy could touch it, and maybe nothing could. The human voice returned, calm and sharp like a blade. You were warned, it said. This is your last chance to step aside. Rethen slammed his fist against the console. Never, he roared. The Empire bows to no one. He turned to his officers. Order every ship forward. I don't care the cost. Surround it. Crush it. The Imperial fleet obeyed. Thousands of ships swarmed the massive vessel from every direction. Frigates darted forward. Destroyers launched volleys of torpedoes. Battleships fired their heaviest cannons. The void became fire, streaks of energy and explosions painting the blackness. For a moment, the human warship vanished inside the chaos. The officers cheered. It cannot survive that, one shouted. Even gods cannot withstand such fire, said another. But then, the storm ended, and the warship emerged untouched. Its black hull gleamed brighter than before, glowing with streams of light that now ran like rivers of fire across its surface. The officers froze, their cheers died. It had survived everything, and now it was answering. A low hum filled the void, deep and steady. The glowing rivers of light converged into a single point at the front of the ship. The air itself seemed to tremble. Sensors screamed warnings. Red alarms filled the Empire's ships. Unknown weapon charging. Energy beyond measurable limits, the technicians cried. Admiral Rethen's throat tightened. What is that? He whispered. No one had an answer. The energy built higher and higher until even the stars seemed dim beside it. And then, the human warship fired. A single beam of white-blue energy lanced through the darkness. It was not like any cannon the Empire knew. It did not explode. It did not scatter. It cut. It sliced through the Imperial fleet as though their ships were paper. 10 destroyers vanished in an instant. A cruiser split apart before its crew even had time to scream. A battleship, the pride of the Empire, was torn in half like metal foil. Thousands of lives ended in the blink of an eye. The Imperial fleet broke. Panic spread through the ranks. Ships turned away, fleeing in terror. Others fired wildly, their weapons bouncing uselessly off the warship's shield. The human ship did not pursue. It simply stood, waiting, glowing like judgment itself. The calm voice of Captain Elias echoed once more. This is the power you forced us to build. You wanted to chain us, you wanted to break us, but we learned, we adapted, and now we are beyond you. Rethen's hands shook. This cannot be possible, he whispered. Humans cannot do this. But the truth was burning before his eyes. One officer cried out, Admiral, we must retreat. We cannot fight this. Another shouted, if we do not run, we will all die. But Rethen stood frozen. If he retreated, he would dishonor the Empire. If he stayed, he would lose everything. The warship fired again. Another beam of light swept across the stars. This time it did not aim for ships, it aimed for the Imperial bat. The station guarding the capital, a fortress said to be indestructible, built over centuries, armed with thousands of cannons. In one strike it was gone, shattered into a billion fragments, its pieces burning like falling stars across the skies of the capital. On the surface below, billions of citizens looked up in horror. They had watched the fortress every night, a symbol of eternal strength. Now it rained down upon them as fire. Panic filled the streets. Crowds screamed. Senators fled their chambers. Temples filled with prayers. The mighty Galactic Empire was trembling. Admiral Rethan felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. He could not deny it any longer. This was not luck, not illusion. This was power, pure and unstoppable, and it belonged to humans. His voice broke as he whispered to himself, "If one ship can do this, what will happen when they send more?" The human warship spoke again. "This is not war," Captain Elias said, his voice calm and final. "This is warning." And then, without another word, the warship turned its glowing weapon toward the Emperor's palace. The capital world burned with fear. Across the skies, the broken remains of the Imperial battle stations still fell like rain. Each glowing fragment was a reminder that the Empire's greatest fortress had been destroyed in seconds. Citizens ran through the streets, temples overflowed, senators screamed in confusion. The unshakable order of the galaxy was shaking at its core. In the Emperor's hidden chambers, whispers spread among the royal advisors. Some demanded immediate surrender, others insisted on vengeance, but none could explain how a race once dismissed as weak had risen with such terrifying strength. Deep inside the intelligence archives, agents searched ancient records. One analyst, pale and sweating, uncovered forgotten files sealed away for centuries. He whispered to his super, "Sir, you need to see this." The files told a story long hidden. Centuries ago, the Empire had not merely defeated humanity, they had feared them. At first, humans were underestimated, yes, but even then, they had shown a talent no other race possessed: adaptability. When weapons failed, humans invented new ones. When empires crushed them, they found new ways to survive. The archives revealed chilling words once spoken by an old imperial general. "If humans ever rise again, they will not just fight, they will become something we cannot stop." The superior trembled. "And now, that day has come," he whispered. Rumors spread quickly through the capital. The Empire's own historians admitted the truth. Humans had always been underestimated. Even when beaten, they had learned. Even when chained, they had grown stronger. Meanwhile, in the command chamber, Admiral Rethan stared at the glowing warship still approaching. It had not yet fired on the capital. It waited, like a predator watching its prey. The silence was heavier than any weapon. Suddenly, a secure transmission cut through the chaos. It was not from the warship. It was from inside the Empire itself. A group of rebels, long hunted and crushed, appeared on the screen. They were alien races enslaved by the Empire, and now they spoke with defiance. "Humans are not your enemy," the rebel leader said. "They are the beginning of your end." The chamber fell silent. Rethan's officers stared in shock. The rebels continued. "We have waited centuries for this day. The day when someone would rise powerful enough to break the chains of the Empire. And that day has come, carried on a human warship." Rethan slammed his hand against the console. "Traitors," he hissed. "You dare ally with these creatures?" But his voice sounded hollow. Even he knew the Empire's grip was slipping. The rebels revealed more. Through secret channels, they had spoken with humans, and what they learned shook even the hardest officers. Humans had not done this alone. In their exile, scattered on forgotten worlds, they had found things long lost: ancient ruins, abandoned technologies, and allies hidden in the shadows of the galaxy. Forgotten species, once hunted to near extinction by the Empire, had given their secrets to humanity. Together they had built weapons beyond imagination, and now humans commanded knowledge older than the Empire itself. The revelations spread like wildfire across the capital, across the fleets, across the galaxy. Oppressed species whispered in hope. If humans could rise, then maybe they too could be free. Rethan felt his throat dry as he realized the truth. "This is not just a warship," he muttered. "This is the future." On the warship itself, Captain Elias watched silently. His crew worked with quiet precision. They were not celebrating, they were not laughing. They carried themselves with the calm of people who had suffered too long. They were here not for conquest, but for justice. The captain's voice cut through the silence once more. "Empire," he said, his tone steady. "We are no longer the weak species you mocked. We are no longer the scattered colonies you ignored. We are united, and we will no longer kneel." The words echoed across every imperial channel, from the smallest outpost to the throne room itself, and though they were only words, they carried more weight than any weapon. The emperor himself rose from his throne, his hands trembling. He had ruled for centuries without fear. Now for the first time, his heart quaked. "Humans," he whispered. "They will unmake everything we built." In the streets below, the people whispered the same. Fear turned into doubt. Doubt turned into panic. The foundations of the empire were cracking, not from weapons, but from truth. The human warship still waited. Its glowing lines pulsed with silent power, and the galaxy understood. This was no single battle. This was the beginning of something greater. Admiral Rethen clenched his fists. "We cannot let them win," he growled. But in his heart, he knew the truth. The empire was already trembling, and soon it would fall. The galaxy held its breath. The human warship hovered before the capital world, its black hull glowing with streams of blue fire. It had destroyed fleets, erased fortresses, and broken the pride of an empire that ruled for millennia. Yet it did not finish the strike. It waited, silent, like a judge staring at the guilty. Admiral Rethen stood frozen, every instinct screaming to fight, but every memory telling him it was useless. The crew whispered around him, their voices trembling. "What do they want?" one asked. "Why do they wait?" another muttered. And then the answer came. The voice of Captain Elias echoed across every imperial channel, not just in the command chamber, not just in the fleets, but across the entire galaxy. Every ship, every station, every planet heard the same voice, the voice of humanity. "Galactic Empire," Elias said, his tone calm but heavy with power. "You built your rule on fear. You silenced the weak. You enslaved the helpless. You crushed all who resisted. For centuries, you thought yourselves untouchable. But you forgot something. You forgot humanity." The word spread like wildfire. Billions stopped in the streets to listen. Miners on distant colonies, slaves in chains, rebels in hiding, soldiers in uniform, all heard the same voice. The empire's propaganda screens that once declared imperial glory now broadcast humanity's message. "We asked for peace once," Elias continued. "We were denied. We were beaten, scattered, mocked, and left to die in the dark. But we learned, we endured, and now we have returned, not as your subjects, not as your slaves, but as your equals or your end." Gasps echoed through the capital. Never before had a so-called lesser race dared to speak with such open defiance. Citizens stared at the sky, whispers turning to shouts. Humans, hey, are not weak anymore. Maybe they are the ones who will free us. The emperor himself listened from his throne. His hands gripped the armrests so tightly they cracked beneath his fingers. He had heard countless challenges before, but none had ever shaken him like this. He could hear not just the words, but the certainty that humanity would never bow again. And then Elias spoke the words that shattered the galaxy's illusions. "You look upon one ship and you tremble," he said. "You think this is the limit of our strength, but you are wrong." The chamber froze. Officers leaned closer to the screens. Citizens held their breath. The voice continued, steady as iron. "This ship is not alone. Humanity has built many." Silence followed, a silence so deep it crushed the heart, and then the stars themselves seemed to open. From the black void, other shapes emerged. One by one, colossal warships appeared beside the first, their hulls glowing with the same burning rivers of energy, their weapons humming with unstoppable power. The fleet of humanity revealed itself. Admiral Rethen staggered backward, his eyes wide. This cannot be," he whispered. The officers cried out in terror. "More ships! Dozens of them! Sir, they are everywhere!" The skies above the capital filled with human warships, each one larger than the greatest dreadnought the Empire had ever built, each one carrying the silent promise of destruction. The people of the capital fell to their knees, some in prayer, some in surrender, some in awe. Elias's voice cut through the chaos. "We do not come to conquer," he said. "We come to end your chains. We come to give the galaxy a choice. Stand with us or stand in our way." Rebel leaders across the galaxy cheered. Worlds once enslaved, lit beacons of hope. Armies long crushed raised their weapons again. The galaxy was changing. or their very eyes, but in the imperial palace the emperor's fury burned like fire. He slammed his fist down and roared, "They dare to challenge me? They dare to bring warships to my throne?" His eyes burned with madness. "Then let the galaxy see my wrath." He ordered every fleet across every sector to converge on the capital. Millions of ships, the full power of the Empire. He would show humanity that even their mighty fleet could not withstand the weight of the galaxy's oldest rule. Admiral Rethan felt his heart sink. He knew what was coming. The largest battle in history, the storm that would decide the fate of the galaxy itself. On the human flagship, Captain Elias gave the final words of his message. "Empire, you once believed humans were nothing. You will now learn we are everything you feared." The message ended, the stars filled with human warships, and the galaxy prepared for war. The galaxy trembled as the Emperor's command spread across every star system. "All fleets converge on the capital," he roared. "Bring me every ship, every weapon, every soldier." His voice carried madness and pride. He would not surrender. He would rather burn the galaxy than bow to humanity. And so they came. From distant sectors, from border worlds, from secret fortresses hidden in the void. The might of the Galactic Empire assembled, millions of ships, frigates, destroyers, cruisers, dreadnoughts, an ocean of steel and fire. Their numbers were so vast that entire constellations disappeared behind the fleet. It was the largest armada ever gathered in history. In the command chamber, Admiral Rethan watched the endless stream of ships arrive. His officers cheered as more fleets warped in. "Look at our strength," one shouted. "Not even the humans can stand against this," another said. But Rethan stayed silent. Deep in his heart, he knew the truth. Numbers alone could not defeat what they faced. High above the capital, the human fleet waited. Dozens of colossal warships hovered silently, their GT flowing rivers of energy pulsing like the heartbeat of gods. They did not move, they did not fire. They simply waited, calm as predators surrounded by prey. The galaxy watched from the farthest colonies to the richest core worlds. All eyes turned to the capital. Billions held their breath, for they knew the next battle would decide the fate of everything. The Emperor's voice thundered once more. "Crush them," he ordered. "Erase their ships from the stars." And the storm began. The Imperial fleet surged forward, a tidal wave of metal and fire, tens of thousands of cannons unleashed at once. Beams of energy, torpedoes, plasma storms, all fired together in a single blinding wave. The night turned into day as the void itself burned. The human fleet answered, not with chaos, not with panic, but with terrifying precision. One warship turned, its weapon glowing, and with a single beam it erased 100 ships. Another fired a pulse that shut down entire formations, leaving them drifting helpless in the dark. Missiles launched in perfect silence, curving through space with unnatural intelligence. Each one struck its target with surgical accuracy. The Empire's vast numbers crumbled before human power. Every strike of the humans cut down dozens. Every defense shattered the Empire's attacks. The fleet that once seemed endless now broke apart. Ships collided, formations collapsed, admirals screamed orders no one could follow. Admiral Rethan watched in horror as the battle unfolded. He had seen defeats before, but never like this. This was not a battle, this was a slaughter. And still the humans moved with cold precision. No wasted fire, no reckless moves, only efficiency, as if they had practiced this war for centuries. The citizens of the capital wept as they saw their fleets burn, the great symbols of power. The pride of the Empire, reduced to ash, the galaxy's fear beg, and to shift into something else. Hope. If the mighty Empire could fall, then anyone could be free. On the Imperial flagship, the Emperor raged. His golden robes shone in the dim light, his eyes burned with fury. "They cannot defeat me," he snarled. "I am the Empire. I am eternal." But even his own guards trembled. They had never seen such power, never seen such certainty in defeat. The human fleet pressed forward, their massive ships tearing through the last lines of defense. The skies above the capital filled with burning wreckage. The screams of dying crews echoed across the channels. Still the humans did not speak. They let their weapons carry the message. The age of the Empire was ending. Finally, Captain Elias's voice returned, calm and sharp. "Empire," he said, "your pride is your downfall. You believe strength was in numbers, but true strength is in unity. And humanity is united. Rythan sank into his chair, the truth crushing him. The Empire had ruled for thousands of years, but it had never faced a force like this. Not just ships, not just weapons, but a will forged in suffering, in survival, in defiance, and that will was unstoppable. The Emperor rose from his throne, his eyes blazing. "If my fleets cannot defeat them," he declared, "then I will." His words sent chills through the chamber, for the Emperor was not only a ruler, he was a warrior. Ancient and deadly, he would take command himself, and he would face humanity in person. On the human flagship, Captain Elias received the transmission. The Emperor's face appeared on the screen, twisted with fury. "Human," the Emperor spat, "you think you can end me with machines and words? I will show you the true fire of the Empire." Elias did not flinch. His eyes were steady, his voice calm. "Then come," he said, "let the galaxy witness your final battle." The stage was set. The largest fleet in history lay shattered. The galaxy trembled between fear and hope, and now the Emperor himself would face humanity. The end was near, but whose end? It would be. None could yet know. The skies above the capital burned with the wreckage of 1,000,000 ships. The greatest fleet in history had been shattered. The pride of the Galactic Empire lay broken, drifting as glowing debris across the void. And yet the war was not over, because the Emperor still lived. In his throne room, the Emperor rose, his golden robes torn, his crown cast aside. He wore armor older than the Empire itself, black and red, forged in wars before the stars were mapped. He took up his ancient blade, a weapon powered by energy drawn from the very core of suns. He was no longer a ruler, no longer a god of ceremony. He was a warrior, and he was ready to fight. He appeared on the screens of every surviving Imperial ship, his voice filled with fury and fire. "My people," he roared, "do not fear this human fleet. I will strike them down myself. I will show the galaxy that the Empire does not kneel." The people cheered weakly, desperate to believe, desperate to hold on to something. But deep down, even they felt the fear, because they had seen the truth. Humanity had already broken the Empire's chains. The Emperor boarded his colossal flagship, a vessel larger than mountains. It was armed with the most ancient technologies of the Empire. Weapons forbidden even to his own admirals. Engines that burned with unstable suns. It was the last card of the Empire, the throne of war itself. The human fleet watched as the monstrous ship rose from the capital and ascended into orbit. It glowed like a dying star, its weapons crackling with destructive power. The Emperor's voice cut through the silence. "Human," he spat, "you have destroyed my fleets. You have killed my people, but you will not kill me." On the human flagship, Captain Elias stood calm, his eyes unshaken. He opened the channel. "Emperor," he said, "this is not about killing you. This is about ending the age of chains." The two titans faced one another in the void, the Emperor's flagship against the human warship. The galaxy itself seemed to pause. Billions watched from every corner of the stars. The final battle had come. The Emperor struck first. His flagship unleashed a storm of energy so bright it blinded sensors across the system. The void shook as space itself rippled under the force. The human ship was caught in the blast, its shields flaring, its hull glowing. For a moment, hope returned to the Empire. "The Emperor has done it," voices cried. But when the light faded, the human ship still stood, its hull scarred but its weapons alive, its engines roaring. The calm voice of Captain Elias returned. "You are strong," he said, "but strength without honor is nothing." The human warship answered with a single beam. It carved across the Emperor's flagship, tearing through its shields, cutting deep into its armor. But the Emperor refused to fall. He poured every ounce of energy into his ship. Weapons of forbidden power, storms of black fire, ancient suns unleashed in rage. The two ships clashed in a duel that shook the heavens. Every strike lit the skies. Every counterstrike echoed across the galaxy. The Emperor screamed with fury. Elias fought with silence. The Empire's last hope against humanity's unbreakable will. Finally, the Emperor unleashed his greatest weapon, a core of unstable energy capable of tearing apart an entire system. He laughed as the weapon charged. "If I cannot rule the galaxy," he roared, "then I will destroy it." But before the weapon could fire, the human ship released its full power. All its glowing rivers of energy converged into a single strike, a beam brighter than any star, pure and unstoppable. It tore through the Emperor's flagship, cutting it apart from crown to keel. The colossal ship exploded in a storm of fire and broken light. The Emperor's last scream echoed before vanishing into silence. The throne of the Empire was gone for a low, bang moment. The galaxy was quiet. Then the voice of Captain Elias spread across every channel. "People of the galaxy," he said, "the Emperor is dead. The chains are broken. A new era begins." Across 1,000 worlds, cheers erupted. Slaves dropped their chains. Rebels raised their banners. Children wept with joy. The Empire was no more. Humanity had ended an age that had lasted for millennia. On the Capitol below, the citizens watched as the burning remains of the Emperor's ship fell through the skies. They bowed their heads, not in sorrow but in awe, for they understood that history had changed forever. Elias's final words carried through the stars. Humanity does not seek conquest. We seek balance. But let the galaxy remember, we will never kneel again. The galaxy trembled, not in fear, but in realization. The age of the Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun.